In a major escalation today, Trump made good on his promise to send federal troops into Portland, Oregon, with Secretary of War Pete Hegseth announcing that 200 members of the Oregon National Guard will be, quote, called into federal service effective immediately for a period of 60 days. The move very much follows what Trump did in Los Angeles in June, which was ruled illegal in a trial court, which I'll get to in a moment. But in the meantime, Oregon's Attorney General has wasted no time in filing suit against the Trump administration, arguing that the decision to federalize and send in the National Guard is largely pretextual, that it violates the Posse Comitatus Act, which prohibits the use of the U.S. military for domestic law enforcement purposes, and violates the 10th Amendment to the Constitution's guarantee that the police power resides with the states. And again, these are the same arguments that Gavin Newsom, California Attorney General Rob Bonta, and the state of California made when they challenged an analogous situation in court this summer, and again, a trial court ruled against the Trump administration. In fact, I spoke with Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield today about exactly this point. Here's what he had to say. Now, in proving out these rationales, these justifications that he needs to be able to send the military in. As you mentioned, there's obviously no rebellion, there's obviously no invasion, there's no failure of the state or the government to be able to uphold its laws. I believe those are the three thresholds that he needs to be able to meet. He will nonetheless say that there is, and in a way, it's kind of subjective for him to just be able to say, like, here's a video that I found online of Antifa rebels taking over Portland, and so that's all I need. That's all of the predication I need to be able to send these troops in. Who is the arbiter at the end of the day of whether or not he has a legitimate justification to be able to send troops in?
Ultimately, the courts are. And what you've seen in California, where a similar lawsuit was filed, they were successful down there. And in fact, Oregon participated in an amicus brief supporting Governor Newsom and Attorney General Bonta as they were successful in court. Same thing in Washington, D.C. Now, I would argue, as we sit there, we do want the president to have some of these authorities. We do want courts to give him some deference. However, when the facts are on the ground are absurdly different than what the president is stating, you need to have judges holding the president accountable to following the law, because it is not okay in our democracy, in our country, for the United States military to be deployed in this fashion willy-nilly.
Now, I've said for months now that the California lawsuit challenging Trump's troop deployment is one of the most important cases that we will ever see. This Oregon lawsuit now falls into that category, and in fact, they may actually meet at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. But the reason that this case is so important is not just about the implications of Trump being able to deploy troops, which, to be clear, in a normal world would be bad enough unto itself. Like, the notion that the President of the United States could or should sic the U.S. military on American citizens in American cities is a scandal second to none in the history of this country. And the fact that virtually all Republicans are okay with it is a testament to the rot that has pervaded a party that once cosplayed as constitutionalists. But beyond that, there are major implications for this election. As I've explained many times before, the real goal for Trump here is to both normalize Americans to the idea of troops in our cities and give himself a legal framework to be able to do so that when the election rolls around and he wants to use the military to do his election bidding, he won't face any legal roadblocks to be able to do so. And let's be clear, this isn't some hysterical hypothesis. Trump literally tried to seize the voting machines in Georgia in 2020. He ultimately wasn't successful because his DOJ, led by Bill Barr, wasn't going to go along with his plan. Bill Barr called it bullshit. But Trump doesn't have that problem now. Do you think that Pam Bondi is going to put up a fight? Kash Patel, Dan Bongino? These people are literally there because they are election deniers. So with no opposition from the law enforcement agencies, imagine what Trump could do if he had boots on the ground to effectuate his plans, to seize voting machines in the Democratic population centers like Milwaukee and Detroit and Philly and Atlanta. Do you think it would be possible for Democrats to win any elections in Wisconsin or Michigan or Pennsylvania or Georgia if Trump messes with the voting machines in any of those places or pulls any other stunt in any of those places? Not a chance. He knows that. That is why he tried to seize them last time. But whereas he didn't have boots on the ground then, he is trying to give himself a legal framework to be able to do so now. That is why these lawsuits are so important. because this is him trying to validate troop deployments. What happens in the Ninth Circuit case in California and in the trial court in Oregon quite literally could not be more important as we head toward November of 2026 and November of 2028, especially considering the president has already tried to interfere with our elections before. I spoke about that point with the Attorney General of Oregon. Here's what he had to say.
And this is why it's so important. Everything you said is why it's so darn important that we have attorneys general across this country that are holding the line against a president who's trying to federalize the U.S. military against its own citizens. Incredibly important. It is a big line for this president to cross, and he's crossed over some real significant lines. Right now, we have politicians, frankly, from both parties, that are talking about gaming our electoral system to maintain control of our country and Congress. That's problematic. We should not be having those conversations in this country. We should have integrity in our elections. And as you pointed out, he's done a lot of other things to frankly game our electoral system. Incredibly bothersome. Was it last week we had the president and his appointees trying to influence the free press? There is not a Democrat or Republican in this country that does not agree with the fact that we must at all times have free press. You even had Senator Ted Cruz speaking out against the president and how dangerous this is. You have the hallmark of an effective democracy, an independent judiciary. You have the president attacking judges and our independent judiciary, which is one of the backstops. It is the co-equal branch of government against tyranny of the executive branch. So we're in an incredibly important time. I do feel heartened, right? We have gotten some positive judicial rulings, but you see this attack on our democracy coming on multiple fronts. And that's why it's so important to have attorneys general, governors, and all of our elected officials pushing back. It's so important for people in our community to let our elected officials know this is not okay. And it doesn't matter what party you're from. This is a democracy, and we have foundations, and we have values, and we have to uphold those.
So I hope everybody recognizes just how dangerous these troop deployments are. Again, in anything resembling a sane world, the president sending troops into our own cities would be the biggest scandal in American history. But recognizing that this is also his pretext to be able to give himself the tools to rig the election should put on full display why we have to fight this with everything we've got right now. So what does that look like? There are a few avenues we can take. There's the effort to fight back in California by approving the Prop 50 measure that'll be on the ballot this November. There is boycotting entities or institutions that capitulate to Donald Trump, like what we saw against Disney amid the Jimmy Kimmel cancellation. There is supporting independent media that isn't both siding our descent into fascism that we're seeing right now. And by the way, if you're not subscribed to this channel, I would very much appreciate you subscribing, which is and always will be 100% free. There is getting people in your circles involved and engaged. And I want to be clear about something here. No one is coming to save us. Robert Mueller is not swooping in. Lawyers will not save us, prosecutors will not save us, judges or Democratic members of Congress or Democratic members of the Senate or candidates or the DNC. None of these people are the solution here. There is no white knight. There is no silver bullet. The solution is everybody individually recognizing their agency and using it. Last election cycle, I said to find one or two people in your circles and make them your responsibility. Now I'm asking you to find 10. For every one of you watching this, there are 10 people who don't care about politics, who've checked out, who've succumbed to the feelings of despair or hopelessness or apathy. It is incumbent on all of us who do care to make inroads where we can. I know that this might seem Pollyanna, but I am earnestly asking you to find people in your lives who recognize that either they have been conned by Trump and Republicans or who wouldn't normally engage with politics and get them engaged. The only way we win is if we grow the tent, but it's going to require all of us doing our part to grow it. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.